Yo, what's up, witches? I'm back, taking things back, old school with this video, just coming to you, filming in my little witchy crafty room here, which I finally took some time yesterday to give a much needed cleaning and reorganizing to my little table back here where I'm keeping all of my various and sundry witchcraft supplies. But speaking of cleaning, I wanted to just sit down and do a video all about the basics of cleansing and protecting your own personal space, whether that be your room, apartment, house. And there are a lot of different ways to go about it. So in this video, I just wanted to go through the basics of how I personally cleanse and protect my home and my space, and just give to you some of the little tips and tricks that I have personally found benefit and help me along the way. So let's get into it. So when you're going to cleanse your space, the first and most important thing you need to do is just to harness your willpower and what I call the get the fuck out energy. And I feel like this also stretches into the supernatural realm of when people are performing exorcisms as well, because typically, you feel like you need to get a priest involved and say Christian or Catholic prayers and pray to God and Jesus, and that's what scares the evil spirits away. But it makes me wonder, if you were not Catholic or Christian, but still believed in the supernatural and still believed that something was suppressing or trying to spiritually attack you, what would you do? Personally, I feel like if someone thought that their house was haunted or that there was a demon living in it, that all you really need at the end of the day is your own willpower. You can say these prayers and chant these specific words, but to me that's almost like just performing a spell, and it's just a tool to help the person's mind focus and amplify their willpower. You're calling on your deity for backup, which is definitely something that I recommend that you do when cleansing. But for the most part, this can just come. Can you not? No, can we not do that? No. But for the most part, I feel like even with an exorcism, at the end of the day, it's mostly coming from the own person's energy and willpower projecting outward to force the negative energy out of the space, and you just feel like you have the ability to do it because you're calling for backup from those higher powers. But at the end of the day, I feel like it's primarily coming from you, especially when you want to cleanse and protect your space. It is your space, it's your house, and if you don't pay rent, get the F out of my house. And the same goes for spirits. So really, you just have to harness your willpower and the get the fuck out energy. You could honestly just do a house cleansing by blaring heavy metal music and banging pots and pans around your house, yelling for everything to get the fuck out, and that would work. Let me go into breaking down how I personally cleanse my space and my little tricks and tips that I've learned along the way that just help me feel like it's more effective. Me and my husband usually tag team cleansing the house, and this is something that we have done even before I became a pagan, because I just always believed in vibes and things like the supernatural. And my husband also, studied Reiki and energy work and can pick up on energies and things like that even before we went down the pagan path. In addition to that, he also has Native American background. Just to add that little disclaimer before I say that the main way that we cleanse our house is by using smoke cleansing. Typically, you will see sage used for this. We do use sage. However, I do recommend and personally try to find other things to substitute with when I can. The fact remains that it is still kind of an endangered plant, and because it's become so popular and mass marketed, that it's being over harvested, and people who actually need it for their cultural ceremonies are having trouble finding it. So if you can find alternatives, please do, especially because it's just become even more commercialized now. I can walk into Spencer's Gifts in the mall and find sage and witchy stuff there, which is just weird to me because I feel like you would have never seen that like 5 to 10 years ago. But it's just become such a weird, like, niche popular market all of a sudden. But anyway, I'm rambling. That all being said, we do smoke cleanse our house. We saged our house the day we bought it before we even moved any of our stuff in. And typically, since my husband is the one that's a little bit more has a little bit more experience and like expertise, whatever you want to call it, with doing energy work and things like that and sensing energies, I usually let him lead with the smoke and go through and do the actual saging, and then we kind of tag team it, and I will follow up with something else to kind of reset the energy afterwards. But there's lots of different things you can use, lots of different things you can use to smoke cleanse besides sage. You can use bells, chimes, or music or singing bowls and do sound cleansing. Like I said, you can blare death metal and run around your house just yelling for everything to just get out. You can use incense. A lot of different ways that you can go about it. We do typically start off by smoke cleansing the entire house, and I just wanted to go through what that process looks like for us. So the first thing that you're going to want to do before you begin your smoke cleanse is to open up all the doors, especially the exterior doors, but I have found it is also very useful to open up all closet doors. I don't usually go through and do like kitchen cabinets because to me that's not exactly the same thing. Symbolically, a doorway is a doorway, whether it's actually an exterior door coming in and out of your home or not. Spirits might not necessarily make a distinction between interior and exterior doors. A door is a door. There might be a reason why kids are afraid of monsters in the closets. A door is a door, and a door is a portal. For my own practices, I try to go through and open up all the closet doors and make sure that the smoke cleansing gets into that space as well. And then you also want to make sure that you have at least one window open in each room. And not only does this just help to clear out the smoke once you're done, but the idea is that you're pushing all of the negative or stagnant energy out of your house. So you need to give it somewhere to get out of your house. So by opening at least one window in each room, it's giving somewhere for that energy to exit. So I'll open all of the doors and at least one window in each room. One thing that I also did the last time we cleansed our house, because I just felt like, I don't know if it was a retrograde season or just a personal funk, or at one point we were seriously debating whether or not someone had actually cursed or hexed us, because it was just a really rough like month or two in our household out of nowhere. So what I decided to do, we had done like 3 or 4 cleansings, but kind of like didn't have the energy to really go all out with them, so they hadn't been very effective. And so once we felt like we had enough energy to really actually both of us get in there and do another smoke cleansing, another thing that I did was I made sure to also target and cleanse all of the mirrors in my house, because mirrors I feel like I'm really superstitious about personally, but I feel like they're also a portal and a gateway. So yeah, if you want to make sure nothing is getting in or trying to cross over through your mirrors, also make sure that you cleanse all of those, because I definitely noticed a difference when I included the mirrors in our last smoke cleansing round, and it definitely seemed to make the difference and help it kind of just stick better. The other thing that I have recently started to incorporate, and if you watch my live videos where we talk about Pagan Book Club, I just recently finished reading a series of books by Silver Ravenwolf all about the study and practice of witchcraft and the basics of that. And they really go in depth with some good techniques and tips for not only creating your own rituals and including cleansing rituals, but a lot of the things that I read in there I really liked, and so ended up taking and incorporating into my own personal practices. And one of those is to incorporate something from each of the 4 elements into the cleansing. And some people, depending on your practice, if maybe you're more nature worship based, animism based, or like Wicca witchcraft based, some practitioners will have not only altars but also like elemental shrines and spaces, either indoors or outdoors. I don't do that, but I did try to kind of, when I did a big house cleansing, not only, instead of just trying to rely only on my own energy and willpower, I have now started trying to take the time to invoke my deities that I work with, beneficent spirits, my house spirits and like ancestors and whoever wants to aid in the working to come in and lend their energy to the cleansing. But along with that, I found that incorporating something from each of the 4 elements also just kind of added that extra boost to the whole process. And the way that I did it, and there's a couple, like I said, there's many different ways that you could do this depending on what you have or what feels right and works for you. But what I ended up doing is I have this big shell here. Usually it just kind of sits here around Freya's little shrine space to hold my little collection of crystals that specifically remind me of her, along with a few other things like this feather. You can see I still have the sage resting in here from the last time, but I'll empty everything out and I'll take the shell and I'll put like a little tea light in the shell. And then that way I have something that is not a lighter, that is a flame that I can use to relight the sage if I need to. And it also incorporates the element of fire, so we have water incorporated through the shell, fire through the candle, and then earth and air through the sage itself, earth from it being a plant, and air from the smoke and from your breath, which you are using to propel the smoke. So I did that, and I definitely noticed a big difference. It just felt cool. It just felt right and more effective to have each of the 4 elements incorporated into the cleansing, and just made it seem a little bit more cohesive and powerful to me, if that makes sense. So highly recommend. Find your own ways of doing that, and let me know maybe what else you come up with. Another thing that you could do if you don't have like a shell or some other like thing to symbolize water is you could use like a room spray, like a cleansing room spray. I have my 9 herbs water here, but I have a couple more that I am making, so keep your eyes peeled, because I guess short personal ad break, I'm behind the scenes. I am working on crafting things to open up a little shop of sorts here in the near future. So I have like Njord Get the Boat, which is like my version of Noah Get the Boat, just like a cleansing grounding spray. And then I have a Heimdall one, which is for like kind of re-energizing your energy, re-energizing your energy. I call it the Heimdall Rainbow Bridge realignment, because it just kind of, yeah, gives you that pep in your step and realigns the chakras. Just a little personal sneak peek into what I'm working on behind the scenes there. But yeah, you could use a room spray to incorporate water. You could use a bowl of water with like salt and essential oils mixed in with it, and like, I think it's called an Asperger or an Asper, where you dip something into the liquid and like flick it. You'll see that at pagan bloats, where bloat comes from the word for blood, and they will sprinkle blood onto the participants and onto the ritual offerings to bless them. But yeah, you could do that with water if you wanted to, instead of using smoke. And then yeah, to kind of circle back around onto that, another thing that I have started doing just when I'm cleaning my house, not cleansing, but just cleaning, incorporate salt. I usually like to use pink salt just because it's fancy, but regular salt would do because it's still cleansing. And you can add salt and essential oils to your cleaning water, not a lot, and I would say it kind of depends on what you're cleaning, because some things like salt might ruin the finish on certain surfaces. But for my floors, or like before we did the last house cleansing, I wanted to redo all the protective sigils that I had written up around the house, including on the exterior doors. And so before I redid them, I put some salt and essential oils into a bucket of water and used that to wipe down all of the doors and door frames first. And then I actually went through with the room spray, because where I couldn't reach like the top of the window sills, and sprayed this around all of the windows and mirrors as well. You can add pink salt, essential oils, or other magical ingredients to your cleaning water. Ask your deities and your ancestors for backup. One thing that I did is I don't have like elemental shrines around the house, but I do have like deity altars and shrines in different areas of my house. If you've seen my if you've seen my video on altars and shrines. And so before I did the cleansing, I will go around and like light incense at all of the altars to invoke the deities and their presence, and to give them an offering of incense so that they will hopefully come in and lend their energy and their assistance to the cleansing. I feel like it also just adds that extra kick to the smoke cleansing, because while I'm going around the house with the sage, we also have the cleansing and purifying incense burning at the altars in different rooms to just kind of channel in that extra good energy. Another important thing that I have learned is if you are going to use sage to do a smoke cleansing, sage is basically considered the spiritual equivalent of bleach. It is going to scrub everything completely clean and get rid of all of the energy, good and bad alike. So while it's good, and I feel like it's definitely important to do regular cleansings, to just not even if there's like negative energies, but just to get rid of stagnant old energy in your house and make way for like new, cleaner, brighter energies to come in. But when you sage, you're eliminating bad and good vibes alike. So after you go through with the sage, like I said, in my house, my husband will go through with the sage first to cleanse, and then I will go through with the incense or something else and follow him up around the house and do like the purifying or kind of restoring and rebalancing of good vibes, either with some type of incense or a room spray or whatever I'm kind of feeling. I'll usually just pick a particular incense that I'm feeling like is appropriate in the moment, and I'll go around the house with that afterwards. Because yeah, I mean, you know what they say, nature abhors a vacuum. So if you get rid of all the energy and then you don't try to kind of reestablish your own good energy in the space afterwards, it might just leave room for something bad to just get sucked right back in again. If you're using sage, just be aware of that. You might want to follow up with some incense afterwards to reset your intentions and just kind of restore some good energy to the space. Along with that, another tip that I picked up from those Silver Raven Wolf books that I really liked, especially as a Norse pagan, is that you can use runes while you're cleansing, because I already was using them when forming the actual like written symbols or sigils that I used as like kind of protecting wards on the house. But she made a good point that while you're going around doing the cleansing, you can inscribe runes in the air or say them, and the one that she recommended and that I use is Rhydo and Algies. Algies I just feel like is a good all-purpose protection rune. I don't know why, I'm just really drawn to it, and I use it on all of my protective sigils. I'll go through with the sage or with the smoke and use it to inscribe a Rhydo, because Rhydo means like forward momentum, and it's propelling your get the fuck out vibes into the furthest, deepest, darkest corners of your house. And so it's like, yeah, especially when I go down and sage the basement, there's some very dark, impossible to access corners down there. So if you're kind of using a rune, it doesn't have to be Rhydo, it doesn't have to be a rune, whatever symbol is meaningful to you and carries the same connotation. But yeah, I like the idea of Rhydo as the driving force, propelling the cleansing energy out into all of the corners of the space and making sure that it touches everywhere in the room. Usually what we will do is start in the basement and kind of work our way clockwise out from the center, spiral out into the outer walls, make sure we get all the rooms, and then go upstairs from there and do the same thing in all the rooms upstairs. Then once that is done and we have, you know, burned something after the sage to reset good intentions, then I will go through and inscribe my protection sigils or wards on all of the exterior doors, both front and back, and underneath all of the windows. And usually I will use pencil for this because I feel like the symbol is just kind of naturally going to lose its energy and like lose its oomph after time, and just kind of wear down after time as it's working. And this is something that I actually started doing when I was a teenager, before witchcraft or pagan anything was anywhere on my radar. I just felt like there was some weird energy in our home and around my bedroom, and I didn't like it. I didn't know what it was, but I didn't like it. So I just kind of made up my own protection symbol and used pencil to inscribe them on my bedroom door and my bedroom windows, just to protect my own individual personal space. And I found that it worked, and I used pencil, and you know, some time had passed, months, years, however long it was, and after some time I noticed the feeling coming back, the creepy feeling. And when I looked, one of my sigils had like kind of been smudged or just faded over time. I couldn't see it anymore. So to me, I use pencil because it's just a good indicator for me of if it's faded or worn or I can't see it anymore, then it's definitely time to re-up on the wards and redo them. So if you are messing with protection sigils, bind runes, and that kind of thing, and you are a little bit leery of it, and you want to just be cautious with it because you don't really, you know, maybe you don't feel experienced enough yet. You don't want to make one wrong marking and your entire spell changes meaning or intention. I feel like using pencil it just feels like a less permanent way of inscribing those things, so that you can go back and make changes if needed, because it's not like set in ink or like set in stone. But also if you're, you know, living in a rented space or just somewhere where you don't want marker or pen on your wall, pencil is a good way to go. And actually, when I first did them here in the house, I used a white colored pencil just to make it even more inconspicuous, and just because white is a purifying, healing association type of color. But this time, after like I said, going through several rounds of trying to cleanse the house and it not working, and I don't know what was going on, this time I wrote the wards on the outside of the exterior doors in charcoal. That's what I used. Yeah, I used charcoal so that it would be a little bit more visible, so I could see what I was doing as I was inscribing it, and just to have it be a little bit more stand out and permanent, a little bit more powerful this time. So yeah, that's what I do. Now I just kind of wanted to give you a little walkthrough breakdown tutorial of how I create these protective sigils, which, like I said, is something I came up with when I was a teenager and may or may not be based loosely on an anime. What I use for my own personal protection sigils is a combination of Norse runes and Irish Ogham, which is the Celtic tree language. What I'll do, and like I said, I may or may not have borrowed this from a certain anime called Witch Hunter Robin that I was a big fan of in high school. And I noticed in that show that they will come across these markings written on the ground, usually with like sand or something, that they use a combination of runes and Ogham, and it just seemed like a very intuitive way of doing it. What I do is I'll usually start with a rune in the center and then make circles around it and inscribe the circles with the Ogham at cardinal points. And the symbols are all just associated with protection and health, good energy, and all that kind of stuff. So for this one, I actually made a bind rune out of algae and gebo. And you can see here when I was kind of coming up with ideas, I just kind of went through and wrote down some runes which had particular protection associations to me, and made my own little bind rune to go in the middle from there. And then I have the circles going around it with the Ogham symbols pointing in different directions, and I decided to do 2 circles because I had just that many Ogham symbols that I wanted to incorporate. But you could use no circles, you could use as many as you want, like make this as simple or as complex as you want to, or make up your own. There's a lot of videos, more like traditional witchcraft or spell work based practitioners, of how to go about crafting your own personal, original sigils. I liked this method. I liked the circles. I liked being able to use things in the different cardinal directions. And then I also on this one incorporated some symbols for the different elements. So what do I have here? I have some fern, which is alder, which aids in divination, scrying, intuition, remaining true. It can be both fern or tinea, which is holly. Balance, integrity, justice, courage, mastery over self, legal, money matters, and growth. And then on the left and right side, I have faith, which is new beginnings, rid negativity, renewal, change. Hua, hawthorn, which is protection, purification, learning through adversity. Just different ones that had protection, protective associations and meanings. And then the other one is Duish, which is Rowan, also protection, control of senses, turn away negativity, and then vitality and healing. Duir, which is oak, strength, endurance, opening new doors and new paths. So either way, whichever way you read my little Ogham symbols there, they all have positive connotations, but may need to kind of rethink the positioning on those, because it can kind of make a difference which way the lines are pointing as to which letter it actually is. I'm guessing since I have this one pointing that way that it is supposed to be hawthorn, and since the one with two staves is pointing this way is supposed to be rowan. But for the top and bottom, with it both being 3, that one could be either way. But yeah, either way, whatever you want to incorporate into it. I just happened to choose runes and Ogham because I like both of them and I like studying both of them, and I call myself a Norse pagan druid, so it made sense to me to incorporate both into my protective wards and workings. But use whatever makes sense and has personal symbolism to you, because like I said, at the end of the day, this is all coming from our own personal intent and willpower. So these tools are all just a way for you to focus that. So use whatever you have. Use whatever makes you feel powerful and makes you feel like the cleansing and the protection is working. Those are just some of my little tips, tricks, and techniques that I have learned along the way that have helped me in making my house cleansings and protections feel a lot more effective. So I hope that you enjoyed this quick little video, and until the next one, stay classy, pagans.